Alec Baldwin needs to go to jail, but a cool girl's going instead. This is the story of what happens when you try to be one of the boys. It never plays out well for you. The cool girl takes the fall for the boys who picked her and let her into the little clubhouse. Seriously, this could have been me. This could have been so many women I know who try to work in male industries or be one of the guys. This could be me. This could be so many of us. I wouldn't be surprised if any woman who's worked in tech, on Wall Street, anything. This could be us. Do not try to be one of the boys. You will the first one who's going to be thrown under the bus as soon as anything bad happens. Alec Baldwin is trash. Okay? I am going to do I've already talked about him and his wife, Hilaria, the other grifter. This man is such a king baby narcissist who nothing is ever his fault. And I don't know, I actually found interviews that he did with the San Francisco, Santa Fe, the police or whatever. It's a 45-minute interview on the phone when he was first charged. And poor Alec, he was crying because, Lorne from Saturday Night Live didn't want him at his party now because he's a murderer. God, this man has so much audacity. I'm going to break it all down, though, and show you how these boys' clubs, you don't want to be a member of the boys' club. You do not want to be in that clubhouse because you are the first one who's going to be screwed when you try to be one of the boys. Before anyone gets in their feelings and it's like, but women have to be accountable. What, are you on a Red Pill podcast? Because I hold women accountable plenty of times. We are the foot soldiers of patriarchy. And what happened to Hannah, the prop master, could happen to any of us. Because she thought that maybe she would get respect if she acted like one of the boys. But the problem is that she's still a woman. She's still a woman. So she's going to be treated like a woman, even if she's acting like one of the guys. This is a cautionary tale of a cool girl who is going to prison now. Because she didn't seem to understand that the systemic oppression of patriarchy is going to fork her in the end. Even if in her individual life she somehow tried to bypass it, it doesn't work that way, babe. Does not work that way. And now we have set a new precedent where all of prop masters could possibly go to prison because the producers and their cheap, irresponsible, reckless asses nothing happens to them. Nothing happens to them. And yet if you go on Twitter, it's all these people, lock her up, make her accountable. Is she a diversity hire? All this stuff. And all of this falls on these people right here. The number one is Alec Baldwin. All these people, these are called producers. And if you don't know what producers do, they are literally responsible for all the decisions made in making a movie. Well, the executive producers like them, but these are the people who created an unsafe environment. Here's some more of them. Notice most of these are men. Just saying. But it's this man. This is the man that is the most accountable because this was his little pet project where he got to be a cowboy. I get to be a cowboy. And he gets to play with his little gun. But instead of using prop pew-pews, like he should have, which is industry standard, he wanted a real one. And now, this beautiful soul is gone. This mother, this DP, director, photographer, or cinematographer is what some people call it. For a woman to be a DP, I cannot tell you how rare this is. She's probably one of the only ones, a working DP. It's so hard to get into the camera department. As a woman especially. Now her husband is a widow and her son doesn't have a mother anymore. And a woman, one of the least powerful people on set, a 24-year-old woman is going to, well, we don't know if she'll serve prison time or not, but she was just found guilty, possibly 18 months in prison because a big king baby narcissist who didn't want to pay people. This is a labor issue too. So many issues play into this. Didn't want to pay. to have a prop master and an armorer. So he just combined them too. Yeah, you take care of all of these pew-pews on set and all the props. So if you're new here and you don't know my background, God, this is driving me crazy. Oh, sorry. I worked in props in the film industry, so I care a lot about this case. Because knowing now, I don't work in props anymore, and I won't again. But I mean, I loved that job, but it is long, grueling hours, and especially if you're not in the union, good luck. Now, as I was an assistant prop, right? Prop assistant. So you're your prop master who works for, you have your production designer who's in charge of all of the art people, the scenics, the props, the set dressers, all that stuff. And then you have your props department where you have your prop master, and then you have like a second prop, and then you have the assistants, right? Just to let you, I didn't work in the film industry a super long time, but it was many years in New York. It is a very hard job. And you're keeping track of so many things. If there's food involved, if there's anything, like one film with Keira Knightley was smoking a cigarette. And one person, that was my job, was to literally stand next to her with like 6 different cigarettes lit, burning at different times, because we have to keep track of when they say cut and when they pick up that scene again. Where was it? Because otherwise she'll be smoking and it'll be like, and people don't notice our job until it's done wrong. If you want to see an example of that, look at the dinner scene in Pretty Woman when she's wearing the fancy dress and is talking about corporate stuff. If you want to see one of the worst prop examples ever, there's like a dessert, then there's no dessert, then there's wine, things just keep disappearing. I don't know if that person ever worked again. So whenever, on the rare occasion, there was a pew-pew on set, well, it was always a fake one. And I've only worked on set a handful of days where there was a pew-pew called for. And the prop master, because of all the safety involved, this was not even a real one. And that man was checked out the whole time. It was on me and the second prop and the assistants to take care of everything that day, because he was babysitting that fake pew-pew all day, because it is so regulated. There's safety meetings, there's checks, there's all these things happening to make sure that thing that happened with the crow doesn't ever happen again, so that no one dies from one of these again, right? It is very highly regulated. There's so many checks and balances, so that this should have never happened. So the fact that these guys, Alec Baldwin and the producers, didn't want to spend their own money. He's a multi-millionaire, but it's a low-budget indie. A man like that should not be making a low-budget indie, first of all. But low-budget movies like this are terrifying to work on. That's what I started off in, and I was like, God, it was so much better to be on a bigger budget film, because you have all the people you need. You have unions representing people to make sure the producers don't fork you over. And so Alec Baldwin didn't want to deal with all that. He wanted to exploit his workers in the cheapest possible way. So he chose one of the few people who would sign up for that job, to be both an armorer, who their sole job is to take care of all the pew-pews, and a prop. The fact that this woman was a prop and an armorer is insane to me. On a Western cowboy movie. It would already be a big deal if there was just a few scenes with that, but the whole thing was about pow. So I'm going to go into the case a little bit, and also into Hannah. Now, she made a lot of mistakes, and she was reckless. But people don't understand what it's like to work on a film set, the crazy hours, and most importantly, I want people to look at the film industry, because I'm sure this is true across industries, but the film industry is a nice microcosm for what it's like in the United States, in the labor force, and when you have Hollywood egos involved too, and some of the most powerful people. Hannah may as well have been working in a castle with the king. Do you really think somebody who works as a low-level employee for the king is going to be able to stand up to King Baby when he's being unsafe? When he's already bullied her? They did not take... Oh my God, this case makes me so mad. Nobody seems to think about gender and the power involved in this case. You can't understand this case without. So Hannah yesterday was convicted of manslaughter. Now Alec is going to get his day in court in July, and I hope he's found guilty. Now he is like, I'm not responsible. I didn't know there were live rounds in the gun. He also tried to claim that he never pulled the trigger. And the FBI was like, that is literally impossible. You put pressure on that trigger. There's no way this could have happened. So that's why they're taking him to court. But more importantly, I hope he is guilty because as a producer, I don't care if he's found guilty as an actor. I think it's actually not necessarily a good thing. An actor of his caliber who was bullying people. And I'm going to show you footage in a minute of what this man was like on set. Nobody was going to say no to this man. But I don't like the idea of just any actor being held accountable for all of the things breaking down before that point where that was put into their hand. But the fact this man was rushing everyone on set, not paying people enough, and refusing to get training in pew-pews, like, fork off. Now, one of the reasons the prosecution was arguing, that, and they had some people on set, argued that it was negligence on her part. Said the crew members, they called up crew members who criticized her conduct, that she left her prop cart, she kept weapons and ammunition in disarray, and sometimes failed to take away from actors immediately after this scene was filming. But when you watch the footage, you try to take a pew-pew away from Alec Baldwin. He wants his gun. He does to play cowboy. You can't take that away from a man like that. You can't. Not a 24-year-old woman on a set with a man in his 60s who has never been held accountable for all the things that he's done, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. So they only deliberated for 2.5 hours. So it sounds like they knew exactly what they were going to do. And I find that frustrating because clearly it was not, I still don't understand the power dynamics on that set. What I find it to be a shame is that her defense was not able to get this picture across. The team is saying that she, being a young armorer whose authority was undercut by producers who sought to minimize costs, rushing the crew, and overburdening her with extra prop duties. That is my argument. She should not have been doing props in addition to handling numerous pew-pews. Given how much I know goes into a person handling one fake one and having to babysit it. I mean, I swear to God, the days that there was any fake pew-pews on set, and there was literally only one, and it was rare. My prop master, he was literally like, y'all are in charge of everything today. I have to babysit this thing. That was one. And it's fake. And these could have been fake, but Alex wanted a real one. She also was being charged with tampering evidence and something about like that stuff. But I would argue, given what we've read about this condition of the hotel being so far away and them not having enough of a turnover time, if you don't know what that is, you're supposed to have a certain amount of hours for turnover so you can get home, sleep, and come back to set. These people are probably not sleeping. They literally had people walk off the camera department for fear around safety and accommodations, among other things. So, we already have proof that this was an unsafe set, but this one 24-year-old woman is going to take the fall for it all. And so the jury found her guilty of willful disregard for the safety of others. Was it really willful, though, when you are burdened with more than you can actually handle? I'm so frustrated by this case. Oh, also, the first AD, if you didn't know, is in charge of safety on set. Dave Halls. That is his job, is safety of the set. But he got a plea deal and he got off easy. A 64-year-old man who's been in the business for a long time and has a record, I did a video about this before, has a long-standing record of being a reckless AD who didn't care. And one of my friends is an AD who just left the business after 30 years. And he covered when that man was like, I don't know if he was fired, but they got rid of that guy. And he came in and he was like, wow, this man is reckless. So I'm just saying from official sources and then unofficial one, like my friend. Now, am I saying that she is not at fault at all? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But like many industries, the people who are not paying these people, who are exploiting these people, who are burdening them with way more than they can handle because they're being cheap and trying to make one person do two people's very separate jobs. Those people should be held the most accountable, not her. Miss Gutierrez was unwilling to maintain proper firearms. Really? Unwilling or unable? Because here's the thing. This man got off. So the first AD, Dave Halls, who I was talking about, she showed him this pew-pew before he handed it to Alex. And he spin the cylinder so he could see all the rounds. And he even admitted, by the way, he avoided prison time by taking a plea deal in the case to testify that he and her regularly performed thorough safety checks, but they fell short that day. He fell short. She did too, but he did. He recalled only seeing 3 or 4 of the rounds that were clearly out of 6, right? So he admittedly failed to check all of them, but he's not responsible. The man literally responsible for the safety of the set. That is his job description. Among other things, that is the number one thing, is the safety of the set. And I'm telling you, as someone who worked on many sets, when the first AD sucks, everyone's life is hell. Everyone. Because that person is like, right? And if they don't do their job, and if they're also a jerk, it's a nightmare. And it's like the trickle-down toxicity of that. So this man was like reckless, over cocky. Shocker. A man who's in men are the worst leaders. You will never prove, and you will never convince me that men are good leaders. A few are, but any man who is cocky is a terrible leader. He even admitted, I don't recall her fully rotating the whole cylinder. That's your job. Make sure that you check it. I did let that safety check pass. Okay, so admission to guilt, but he did a plea bargain. So the defense argued, first of all, that she shouldn't be held criminally responsible because she did not realize there were live rounds on set. I still don't understand where these live rounds came from. I still don't think they know where they came from. Now, she was partying, she was doing reckless things outside of set, but if you've ever been on set, you tell me one film crew that is not like doing really unhealthy behaviors, because that it's kind of like that world is full of especially low budget films. The higher budget things, it's not as much because you have people who are professionals, who've been in the business for a long time. Maybe they have kids and families at home. They're, they're not going to do what a 20-something-year-old's going to do. But I mean, indie filmmaking, hang out with some grips and electrics, okay? Like, they party hard a lot of times. So does the art department sometimes, if they're in their 20s. And a lot of them are literally just coping with the stress of this job. So the defense was like, she didn't know that Baldwin was going to literally point this at someone, which you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to point it at someone. They were rehearsing. He didn't even have to do that. And he was doing it all the time. I'll show you footage in a minute. And they also said that they didn't go search the people who supplied the ammunition until much later, more than a month after. So anyway, this case was a mess. And also, one of my subs lives in New Mexico. I used to live in Taos in New Mexico. I care a lot about New Mexico and what happens in New Mexico. And a lot of my friends in New Mexico go to Albuquerque and Santa Fe to work on stuff like this. The film industry really created a lot of jobs there. But New Mexico is one of the poorest states. This case has cost them a fortune. So yeah, it's not necessarily going to be handled well because they don't have the money and the power to do all this. And what the defense argued, what I agree with, is that Hannah was a convenient fall person for the production's mistakes. But the jury didn't seem to think so. Shocker. But, you see so many women lock her up. Like, going on Twitter and putting her name. It seems like only people who've worked in the film industry or worked for in industries similar to it have any idea how messed up this is. That none of the producers are facing any jail time, but this 24-year-old is. So let's deep dive. The Hollywood Reporter did this, a month or so ago, a deep dive into her. And it may sound like they're trying to justify her and humanize her and all that stuff, but honestly, they kind of needed to. Because the way that people have been talking about, literally, like, men and women alike are like, punish her! Internalized misogyny, not understanding patriarchy, not understanding power dynamics, narcissism, when your boss is a narcissist, and I do not diagnose people quickly on here. But Alec So in this article, they talk about the morning of the shooting. The camera crew had walked off in protest of the working condition. And she told Alec that they needed a weapons check, and he said, "We don't have time." Now, when you watch the videos I'm going to show you, there's videos of him literally being like, let's go. Which if you've ever worked on a film set, you know that this is always like rush. And one of the wisest things that my prop master said was never let them make you run. They're going to always try to make you run. Never let them make you run. Now, this man was in his 50s and had worked on enormous productions and was in the union and had a family and was like he was like an uncle to me on set. And he was a mentor, and he really taught me how to respect myself and not be pushed around by these bullies. And I was so glad to have that mentorship, because I was like, they're so pushy that I was like running. He's like, no. As soon as he caught me running, he goes, do not run. Once you start running, they're going to make you run. They're going to expect you to run. Do not let them dictate your job and how much time you need. They're always going to be in a hurry. They give the camera as much time as no one ever rushes the camera department. They don't even know what the camera department's doing. And they don't even know what the grips and electrics are doing. But the props, they're like, where's that salad? Where's the gun? Right? So he was like, this is how they treat you. Do not let them treat you this way. Do you think a 24-year-old on set is like the head of her department is going to have the wisdom of a white man who's in his 50s with years and years of experience working on massive productions to know not to let these people push you around, or that she will even be respected if she doesn't? Luckily, if they had a problem with me, I had a boss to defer to, a white man in the industry, in the union. Okay, so I just need people to understand this context. Alec Baldwin repeatedly refused to do the safety stuff around the room. And like they said in this thing, the youngest and the least powerful people working on the movie are the most likely to go to prison. Cool, great. Now, unlike Alec, she had probably the only defender that she could afford. I don't know who paid for it. Maybe it's pro bono. I don't even know. Alec is represented by high-profile litigation Luke whatever, I don't care their name, whose clients have included Jay-Z, Elon Musk. Like, this man is probably going to get off. And then the other man who is more responsible than Hannah was that Dave Hall's dude, who was charged with negligence. He took a plea deal and was sentenced to 6 months of unsupervised probation. This man won't lose his career, although he's so close to retirement. Probably doesn't even care at this point. This 24-year-old will never work again in this industry, most likely. And she's going to prison, most likely, or jail. They haven't decided. Oh, sorry, it is pro bono. That's what I thought I had read. So yeah, she couldn't even afford this lawyer. Thank God he did pro bono. So then they go into like her character, which again, a part of this made me feel weird because I'm like, okay, this is a little much. But given what I've seen, nobody gives a crap about her as a person, right? Because everyone wants her to take the fall. So I understand why this thing was written. So she was once an honor student and a theater kid who was apprenticed by her stepfather. Now she's a cautionary tale. And this case just set a precedent for props. Now, she grew up in Bullhead City, Arizona. Now, I have spent a lot of time in places like that when I worked for the outdoor education in California with all those rich Hollywood kids that I would take canoeing and climbing and all that stuff. We all lived in our cars, making $60 a day, working insane hours, teaching the wealthiest children in America, in the United States, how to climb and canoe. And because we lived in our cars, we would camp and stay, and like we always found ourselves in these very impoverished towns all over California because we couldn't pay rent anywhere. We were just kind of like, sleeping in our trucks between programs and stuff. So I have spent time in Bullhead City doing a food buy for a program. And it's mostly snowbird retirees and casino workers because I used to work on the Colorado River. So again, I've spent a lot of time in these cities. They are very depressing. This woman, I know people may call her a Nepo baby because her stepfather was in the business. And there's some legit, she wouldn't have gotten into the business without her stepdad. But like a Nepo baby who lives in Bullhead City, Arizona is not like a Nepo baby with all the people who are literally rich and don't have to have talent and become like huge stars. Like that's a different level. And it's not even a Nepo baby because I'm sorry, if your dad owns a car mechanic garage and then passes the business on to you, are you a Nepo? Like, Do you know what I mean? So anyway, this is not a Nepo baby kind of situation. Dakota Johnson, I'm coming for you next because you annoy the crap out of me with you. You are Nepo baby. Anyway, sorry. I do not like Nepo babies, but this I will not consider in that same category. Only the Nepo babies who refuse to acknowledge their privilege. That's my problem with them. Because look, her mother cleaned commercial buildings for a living. And this was her stepfather. Like, I'm sorry. Have you ever seen a girl who went in? Have you ever seen a daughter who did the things that her dad or stepdad did as part of trying to be loved? Do you know how many hours of football I watched just to be next to my dad, even though I hate that game? So this happens all the time. She even said, my dad's the bomb.com. I mean, I'm guessing her stepdad was basically her dad figure. He taught me everything. He was taking her to film sets when she was like 11 years old, you know, and the film industry is a very exciting world. That's why so many people go into it. And that's why they're able to so easily exploit us, because we know that if we put our foot down and don't let them abuse us, then there's a bunch of people waiting to come in because everyone wants to work in the film industry. And that's, people have compared, in the film industry, what? In the film industry, people have compared it to being in the army, like boot camp. When you're a PA, you just get, you know, they just beat you up. Not physically, but it's like, oh, are you tough enough for this? It's not for the weak at heart. And so you kind of have to be a little bit of a masochist to be in the film industry, honestly. This is the part right here that I find really interesting. She grew up in a pretty poor community in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, where there's not a whole lot to do. And trust me on this, there is not a whole lot to do around there. And so I think that she was like really into theater because that was, you know, an escape for her and gave her joy. But look at this. She had a tough facade, but underneath she was a very sensitive soul. You could say that about me. You know, if y'all know my story, I'm the tough girl, whitewater raft guide. No one barks with me. But I'm actually like a really sensitive person. And it's amazing that I can say that out loud now, because that was nobody would ever know that before. That's why I wrote that article, the whitewater raft guide who became the toxically masculine feminine. I became one of the boys because I wanted to do all this stuff that they were doing. But to survive in that world, you have to dehumanize yourself on some level, unless you have a whole lot of confidence. If when you're a young woman in a boys industry, and the tech people tell me it's the same there. It's a different kind of toxic masculinity. It's more like inschmellis versus like, you know, tough guy kind of thing. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of this. It's distracting me. And so a lot of us become a cool girl to survive in these industries. And then if you're already kind of like that, because I was already a tomboy, for lack of a better word, and then became like a tom woman, right? This woman reminds me so much of younger Melanie. So like me, she started off as a production assistant, and like any production assistant knows this. On Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, my job was just to cite the crackheads and keep them out of the shot. I can't tell you how many hours I have watched Adore. The jobs they give you as a PA are mind-numbing and ridiculous, and sometimes just painfully boring, and sometimes unbelievably hard, and they freeze you to death. They do all kinds of things. It is like the worst job. And you get paid like $100 a day on some of these low-budget things, sometimes $75 a day. I'm sure that was like back when 2006 and was when I started working. So one of the people on set said she's just so easy. She talks so easily to people. She reminds me so much of myself, y'all. Maybe that's why I feel a certain kind of way, that she just took the fall for Alec King Baby Baldwin. She's so sure of herself, and I'm, you know, and I'm in awe of it. That kind of confidence is handy on film sets where being intimidated by famous actors and directors is a liability. So again, this is exactly what I did on film sets and as a raft guy. I was terrified of these people. But I got really good at pretending like I was confident. And then getting offered this job on Rust, a Western in New Mexico. Like, this is a desert baby, raw. Anybody who grew up in the desert, or desert rats, I think is what we call. Desert people are a different kind. The desert is one of the hardest environments to be in. Oh, I could do a whole video on just the desert and affecting your personality. So she was, you know, on the dean's list, wanted to be a cinematographer one day, which is even more tragic that she's going to prison for unaliving one of the only female ones. So they also listed some of her own personal tragedies, which, again, it's not relevant to this case, but they're trying to paint a picture of this woman as not a Nepo. I think they're trying to move away from her being categorized as like a Nepo baby little brat. Like in 2008 and 19, her mother was arrested multiple times for disorderly conduct and felony wrong possessions. In August 2020, right after she graduated college, her boyfriend and a friend left a party on motorcycles. One of them, who had been drinking, took her bike, lost control, and crashed into a wall and died. And because he was on her motorcycle, her insurance company agreed to pay his parents $50,000 in exchange for them not suing her. Okay, this isn't relevant to a woman getting unalived on set. What they're trying to do is paint a picture that Alec Baldwin is unbelievably rich and powerful man. And he's going after trying to shift the blame. All the producers in Hollywood, the most powerful, rich people in this industry are trying to make this girl take the fall. Someone who doesn't come from money and was young and a little reckless or a lot reckless, maybe doesn't have the best decision or just bad luck too. She's going to prison for what a whole production team did. And then after the wreck, I'm going to get him in the shot. Sorry. After the wreck, she started getting more into pew-pew. Again, this is a very U.S. American thing. Very U.S. American story. So she got a job on a film with Nicolas Cage up in Montana. And this is her first job without her dad, who was an armor in the business for decades, right? And on that shoot, Nicolas Cage complained about her being reckless and being like a rookie. Basically, that she was not qualified enough to be doing a job like that on her own yet. I mean, being an armor on set, I can't imagine wanting that job. But again, if you're a cool girl and your dad was one of these people and you're a tomboy and you want to be able to be respected like men and do the jobs that men do and you know you're competent, a lot of times women like myself too, will get a little overconfident or pretend to be confident, and we have to prove ourselves constantly, right? Which means sometimes we do get in over our head. This same way all these men are trying to like swing their mic around to see who's the biggest. Women end up having to do this too in a boy's world because we are discriminated against so much in this world. We have to prove ourselves constantly, right? But it sounds like she got a little in over her head. It says, as a female armor, she was a rarity on set. On that set, she said she found that actors with questions about her pew-pews would often go first to the other person. And she'd have to be like, don't look at them, look at me. This is so relatable. A woman who has worked in an industry where you're the boss and no one will listen to you and they go to a man instead. You know what this is like. Again, I'm not using all this to excuse her. I'm using this to provide context of what it's like to be a woman on set. I had some issues with men being professional on the last one. It was my first time on set without my dad. There was a little bit of schmegdual harassment going on. I really thought that was kind of over with after the Harvey Weinstein. But no, that is not over anytime soon. After that, she applied to be a member of IATSE, which is the union, made business cards and everything. Y'all, I applied for IATSE. It is very hard to get into this union. It is so hard to get into this union. And actually, it was my prop master, the one I was talking about before, who advised me to stop trying to get in. Because he was like, Melanie, you're a storyteller, you're a comedian, you are too, you should not be doing prop. You should be writing these films. Like, he literally was like, Melanie, if you want to get in the union, that's all you're going to do is do this job. I don't think you should do this job. I will never, ever, and I've thanked him so many times. The only reason why you're watching me right now is because that man was a mentor to me, and he thought that I was made for something different, that I'm very good at, instead of this world where he was trapped in, that doesn't pay him enough, that he loved to do, but people like Alec Baldwin make his life hard. And all those executives and producers. Now, this is key right here. The Rust job came to her only after more experienced crew people turned the producers down. According to the copy of the Rust production budget obtained by the Hollywood Reporter, this $7.3 million film was originally scheduled to have an armor supervisor who would have made $7,913, an additional armor crew member who would have made $7,469. But before they hired her, the producers eliminated the armor crew member position and combined it with the job of a prop assistant, tackling what had initially been budgeted as 2 jobs, managing the pew-pews and a gun-heavy film, right? And compressing it into half a job. So let me just, two jobs compressed into half of a job. So this prop master, Neil, I turned the job opportunity down on Rust because I felt it was completely unsafe. Okay? So other more experienced people who didn't, and this is the plight of people in film. She needed to work on her resume. She needed a job like Rust. Other ones who've been there longer, who don't need it as bad, don't have as much to prove, were like, I don't want anything to do with that. Right? Because they saw the budget and they were like, no way. But a 24-year-old who's trying to prove herself in the industry and is pretty green, this is what the producers hired, and they knew it. When you have other prop masters turning down the job, and you have to go to a 24-year-old to be in a position that important, you have bad judgment and you're reckless and you're cheap. With more experienced crew balking at the level of responsibility that they were wanting for this one person, they hired Hannah. On that film set, Hannah was going to be responsible worth of $12,500 worth of rented pew-pew and $5,000 worth of ammunition. Do y'all remember what I told you? How stressful it was to be on set with one fake one? And they put this girl in charge of everything. Not only was she responsible for all this, she was also responsible for assisting the prop master, Sarah, on making and transporting props. And this part makes me so mad. Making props. We do that all the time. We make things look like real things. That's what movie magic is. I've had to make vomit before. I forget what, a ginger snaps and something else. Like, we make the most ridiculous thing. Making props is very it's so time consuming. So they have her in charge of all this and making things, transporting them. Look at this. Tasks like rolling authentically vintage looking cigarettes for the actors. Are you kidding me? So the prop got immunity for testifying against Hannah. And I don't blame her. I mean, honestly, any woman on that set or any person on that set with no power was probably like, oh, crap. But Dave Halls, nothing happened to him. Producers, nothing. Now, watch this part. Before production started, Hannah held a training session for the dozen or so actors whose roles called for them to handle pew-pews that Baldwin was not able to attend. He just couldn't go. What were you doing, Alec? So even Dave Hall says, I was very impressed by the training session. She made sure that all those actors were holding the pew-pews properly. I'm sorry I have to say pew-pews, but I don't want this getting taken down. Pulling out of their holsters. They all shot blank. She held a private training session for Baldwin at the church. So she's like, all right, Alec. She's trying to talk to this man. Remember, this is a man who doesn't seem to respect women or literally anybody who is less power than him. All right, Alec, I'm going to be your armor. We're going to go over how to shoot all your weapons, how to load them, how to make them safe. And she said that Baldwin spent much of the planned session on his phone and texting and FaceTiming his wife, Hilaria, and all those kids, and having his assistant shoot video of him with the pew-pew for Instagram. I hate you, Alec. And actually, that whole thing that I listened to on YouTube, his interview with the Santa Fe, that 45-minute thing, he kept being like, sorry. He kept giving directions to his wife. Like, God, I hate that family so much. So after this failed session, because Alec couldn't be bothered because he knows how to do this, and he's got to talk to Hilaria. Again, if you haven't seen those videos, those were fun. I tore her up. Fake Spanish, whatever. So she requested the producers grant her more training time, particularly with Alec. That's because his role is so pew-pew heavy, and I wanted to make sure he was familiar with this. I told them that he needed more time to practice his cross draw, which is the thing that unalived the cinematographer, because I didn't want him to have complications with it on filming day. She didn't get the time. Whose fault is that? Alec and the producer, not hers. And then one of the producers, Gabrielle Pickle, emailed her and chastised her for spending too much time on the movie's pew-pew. It's been brought to my attention that you're focusing far more on the armor and not supporting the prop. Then maybe you should hire the props person. In the same email, this producer said that production and A-team had seen her twice, that things were left unattended. And so Hannah replied that the armor's job was very serious job, and since we've started, I've had a lot of days where my job should only be to focus on the pew-pews and everyone's safety. There are working pew-pews on set every day. I cannot imagine a set like that. Like I said, the few days I worked with one of these were so stressful for the prop department. She's got them on set every day, many of them, and a reckless bully king baby running the show, barking orders at her. And she tried to explain that these pew-pews are going to ultimately be my main priority. And when they're not, that's when dangerous mistakes can happen. And she asked for production to approve more days where she would be working with the armorer, which paid her per hour more than a props assistant. Now, this is how cheap these people are. Do you understand? This is like, it's not like they're making a lot of money here, y'all. And just so you know, so she was going to get paid like $7,500. They were originally supposed to pay like, I don't know, whatever. She may have been making like $7,500 for this whole thing. But that's weeks and weeks and weeks of work. And in the film industry, you work like 16-hour days oftentimes, every day. You're working like double what a normal person would work. And then you don't know when your next job's going to be. So it looks like, you know, when I was a prop assistant, I think I was making $300 or $350 a day at my highest rate. But then I may not work again for weeks. And then I also have to recover from that because it is so hard on your body to stand on set all day, especially if you're working for Nolan or Bradley Cooper, who don't believe in chairs, which is the most ableist crap I've ever heard. Well, not ever heard, but that is why I have back problems, permanent back problems now. I can't stand for more than 20 minutes at a time. And I believe most of that is from working on film set. But the producers, now, they don't want to pay a little extra money for her rate as an armorer instead of her rate as a prop assistant. See, they're paying her different based on her job. They make her in charge of the pew-pews every day, which is her job, but they want to pay her as a prop. Do you understand? This is all coming down to money and these people being so cheap, and her warning them that this is going to happen. So on, one day, the producer says, hey, sends this text to her. So after asking for more in the budget, the producers were like, no more training days. Too expensive. And then she was like, what, like training Alec? Yeah, you need to train Alec. Look what happened because y'all wouldn't let her train Alec. So before the day of the shooting, there were signs at the set that she was overwhelmed. Hannah was overwhelmed. Wonder why? Including 2 accidental discharges because she said she'd been performing both the armor and the props job and it was too much. And the producers ignored her concern. If I thought I needed more time on something to prepare for a scene, I could be told to hurry up or no, we don't need that right now. You see, she kept trying to get more help. She saw this was dangerous and the producers denied her the help she needed to keep that set safe. Now, they did mention there's another reason why she's having a hard time with her job because she was doing alcohol and even, which again, that is not that abnormal on set. Like, of course they're doing this. I never did this because I haven't had any, I haven't drank since 2004, I think. But this is so common on film set, especially when you're working crazy hours. Didn't they include this whole text exchange with someone else on set? Because they're just trying to, like, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people hooking up on set too. But this is not really relevant, I don't think, as much as all the other stuff. Like, some guy was flirting with her. I just want to show you an insight into her. One of the PAs, basically. She responded to them, it means a lot. I look like a potato most of the day. Haha. God, this could have been me, y'all. So the day of the shooting, it was a very ambitious day, shocker. With animals alone make a day on set so stressful. It's worse than having a baby on set. Special effects, also very stressful and time consuming. 3 locations, oh my God. That means they're moving 3 times. A company move is, oh God, 3 locations. Forgot about these details. 5 pew-pews. 5. And, someone else said that she should have had an assistant. You can't hold that many with 2 hands. And so, of course, there was a series of errors that led to this shooting. For instance, the 2 people who got shot should have been in a bulletproof glass. Halls and Baldwin should have checked the pew-pew. Baldwin should have never pointed it at anybody. There's no reason to, and you're not supposed to. And he should not have pulled the trigger. There was also weird stuff happening on with the prosecution. It's sloppy stuff. Again, this is a very poor state. It doesn't have the resources for a case like this. Also, apparently when they arrived on set, they intubated her, intubated her, whatever that word is. Wrong. Like they literally, they did not have the resources for a tragedy like this to happen. And so they literally, it took way longer than it should have to take her to the hospital when this happened because the paramedics or whoever showed up didn't do it right. So there was this was literally the perfect storm for the worst tragedy ever. So I like they pointed this out. Noticeably missing from the prosecution's crosshairs are the producers of this low budget Western outside of Baldwin. The only reason they're charging him is because he actually pulled the trigger. This includes Ryan Smith, Alan Chaney, who have a checkered history with financial and safety issues on their film sets, as well as Baldwin's manager, Matt, these two guys. Now, even the prosecutors didn't go after the producers. You know who did? People on that set, because they're traumatized and they want these people to pay up. And I'm sorry, it's really hard to prosecute people and make in terms of the law and justice. That's why civil suits that's why that first case against P. Diddy, right? That was a civil lawsuit. I fully believe that survivors of stuff, whether it's domestic violence or any of the stuff like this, you know what? Yeah, it'd be great. In a perfect world, these people go to jail, whatever, but pay up. As somebody who survived trauma, I find several traumas in my life. I believe that money is what survivors of stuff, of anything like this need. Reparations. Money is what gives people a foundation to heal from this stuff because it requires therapy. It requires all kinds of stuff. You miss work. Your body is traumatized. There's so much. It is so costly to go through trauma, especially big T traumas. And we know that none of these people are, because they're so rich, they're never going to go to jail. Pay up. Pay. Because it is so hard to move beyond something traumatizing when you can't even work because you're so traumatized. So I'm sorry. They always try to paint people who do a civil lawsuit as a money hungry. Fuck off. Money does help you heal. Look at this though. It's very likely that neither the production company nor its agents will ever face criminal liability for this whole thing. Now, since all this, Halls has retired as he should. Baldwin and the other Rust producers have continued to work finishing the film. The audacity of them to finish this stupid film. That alone is ridiculous. And they attempted to sell it to Cannes. And guess what? Hutchinson's husband sued all these people and won a settlement. But what happened to her? Not only is she going to jail or prison, after they published her address and phone numbers, she, shocker, began receiving threats and now has a restraining order against a stalker. And she has a firearm because she's terrified and they tried to take it away from her. It was bro, she's being charged with negligence, not literally unaliving someone. And now, because everyone hates her because of the way this whole thing has been framed and she's the fault person, this whole thing it's such a perfect example of how this whole industry and just the United States. And also, I find a lot of my information from other people in the film industry because so many people writing about this don't understand this world. So, reminder, Alec Baldwin fired all the unionized crew, then brought in less than reputable replacements, which led to this. Halls had a $500 fine, 24 hours of community service, and had to take a firearms safety class, and then unsupervised probation. He is in charge of set safety, and that's all he got. But a 24-year-old rookie is going to prison. Just so you know, the script supervisor sued Alec and the producer that he and the other producers failed in their duty to keep the set safe and didn't do the checks, the check. Also, his stunt double accidentally fired a blank and the prop master shot herself in the foot. Every safety protocol designed to ensure the firearm would be safely used were ignored. And she alleges that all the problems were from them deciding to hire Hannah because no other prop people and armors would touch this film, prioritizing economic profit over ensuring the safety and well-being of the crew members. 7 people on that camera crew walked off hours before she was shot because of this set being a nightmare. And yet nobody wants to talk because of this. who get blacklisted in the industry. Also, they were reckless with COVID measures. So Halls, the guy who's been fired from many things for being unsafe and was called a forking liability, gets off with nothing. And Hannah's going to prison. In addition to all this terrifying, anxious environment on set, they, like I said before, they didn't have adequate hotel room. They're working 13 hours on the clock. And then some claim that they were only left with 6 hours to sleep after long drives home. Because again, if you know the desert and New Mexico, nothing is close, right? And to save money, they put them far away. And now I'm going to show you the footage of this man and why he sucks so much. And Hilaria is like his enabling little co-conspirator villain too. Despite them being this happy little family, every narcissist seems to always want a lot of babies, by the way. All these babies. He's in his 60s and he has all these babies. Great, grandpa. So when this thing happened, look at this dumb thing. I love you and I'm here for you. That was hilarious. Stupid post. Trying to compare him shooting a woman to this. You look at what happens to soldiers and police officers when there's something like this happens. It's traumatic. He just came up here for quiet to their Vermont home. He needs he needs space for me to take care of him like they did the king baby and his mental health. It's an awful thing that happened. Alec feels awful. Poor victim. Watch this. This is your boss.
One more. I forgot the recoil stuff. No, right away. Let's reload. Here we go.
Go.
Conduct that we're seeing on the part of Mr. Baldwin, is that typical conduct from an actor on a movie set?
No.
Why not?
Well, number one, he's basically instructing the armor how to do their job at that point, telling them that we should have had the gun a second reload, hurry up, give it to me, fast. This is that moment. This is that moment I spoke about earlier. This is that moment that you need to stop and say, no, I'm not going to hurry up. I'm going to slow down.
Right. Because a 24-year-old girl is going to be able to tell Alec Baldwin, no, slow down. Do you think he would listen? The dude was on his phone while she was trying to teach him how to use a gun. This man has no respect for her. You really think he's like, good? Y'all do not bring power and gender dynamics into this crap. Shut up, bro.
Off weapons this fast or loading guns this fast. This is creating an unsafe and nerve-wracking situation to describe it in more layman's terms. Always on any kind of live training, exercise, military training or whatnot, you don't want to put people in a nervous position. That creates, and you can stress, it's a level of stress that's necessary in realism training for military and law enforcement. This is not that. This should be separate and apart from that, and even when that's being done under those circumstances, it's done in a controlled manner. But rushing with firearms and telling someone to rush with firearms is not normal nor accepted.
Alec!
When you drop your arm, that means he's 10 feet away. I can't see how close he is, but I want to be almost up by the time he gets here.
No, I'm going to go into this.
Yeah. Well, let me show you something. Hold on. Step back to your original mark. So 1,000, 1,000, 3, I'm getting up.
Right.
Then when he drops his arm, Halina get out. He drops his arm. That means Brady's close. I'm going to start to really get up.
Okay.
Do you see anything concerning here?
He's doing what we saw previously in one of the other videos with the stunt. He's using the weapon as a pointing stick. It's his finger.
And you've seen this video before.
I have.
And what is your understanding about what that gun's loaded with?
It's loaded with probably full flash blanks, but blanks.
Okay. When Mr. Baldwin behaves this way and is using the revolver as a pointer, what is the responsibility on the part of Ms. Gutierrez?
To intercede and correct any unsafe behavior. Now, obviously, again, we're talking about the nuances of doing it. I would start off pulling him aside or talking to him individually and say, if we could, let's be careful with that muzzle. Remember muzzle discipline. I have a little thing that I talk to when I hand a weapon off to an actor.
You're a man.
I used to say back in the day, I would say control, and the actors would have to repeat the word
Shut
control.
up. I don't care what a man prop master says. You're dealing with Alec Baldwin and someone young and inexperienced like Hannah. You don't think that she did that at some point? This man, God, Nobody speaks to the king like that. This isn't just an actor. This is Alec Baldwin, the money bags behind the whole movie. He's the boss. Nobody's going to talk to the boss that way. God.
Watching him, I just felt so angry.
About Alec
Just
Baldwin.
so angry to see him talk about her death so publicly in such a detailed way, and then to not accept any responsibility after having just described killing her.
Essentially, he felt grief but no guilt.
Almost sounds like he was the victim.
They announced that Lauren is getting the Kennedy Center.
Saturday Night Live guy.
And it's going to be all those people, Tina Fey and Will Ferrell and all the greats of Lauren's, 50-year. And I was supposed to be one of those people. Now they told me, I am to be responsible for him even getting the award by reinvigorating that idea. And they told me this is the best of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I know 1,000% I'm not responsible for what happened to her. I'm devastated.
Sure.
If I told you the truth, we're up here in Vermont. We're going to buy a house.
Oh.
We're going to sell both of our homes on Long Island in New York. I'm going to retire. I'm not going to do this for a living anymore. All these things I didn't want to do with my kids. All I care about is my wife and my kids. That's all I care about. And I've been lucky that I've been able to keep one toe in the pool here and make some money and support my family. Sometimes it's gone really well, and sometimes, so-so. But now, where your name, if your name becomes associated with something, nobody wants to work with you anymore. Nobody. You get brought up with, you're Johnny Depp and you're guilty of spousal abuse. That hurts you. He was on the top of the pile.
Right.
They say that you did this, or you had a car accident, you were drunk, anything that makes you look like the villain. You've done something wrong. Not that you were unlucky, meaning you fell off a mountain or nothing where it was an accident, blameless. Where you're construed as being to blame for something really, really heinous, that F's up your whole career.
Right. Yeah. No,
Is this you? I don't know, Alec. Okay, just to summarize, I won't put, that thing is 45 minutes long. But all he does is he makes himself the victim. They all think I'm a murderer. He literally spent a long time talking to this woman in New Mexico who does not care about, there was like a 5-minute story where he was like, I made Lauren who he is. I revitalized Saturday Night Live, and I'm the one who got him recognized at this event. And Tina Fey and Will Ferrell, they're all gonna be there, and I was supposed to be there, and now they don't want me there because I'm a murderer. This man is so full of himself. And then he's all talking about, it's not fair. Johnny Depp? Is that who you're going to use? Is someone unfairly accused? I'm pretty sure he's doing fine now, brah. God, don't even give me. But a man like him is destroyed after one thing, like unaliving someone. You're done. You're the villain. Is this you? This man who called his daughter a rude, thoughtless little pig and told her she didn't possess the brains or the decency of a human being. Remember that whole thing? We heard it all. This is a long time ago. Who talked crap about his wife, his child, drunk, pretty sure he beat up a cameraman at some point. I don't know. I haven't, but homophobic Twitter rants against journalists, kicked off of a flight for being violent, abusive, and aggressive, got belligerent with a female officer when he was riding down his bike the wrong way. He was in the wrong. Told a congressman they should be stoned to death. Sided with some man who was over 200 people had accused. Me too. He's banned from the Philippines and is married to this piece of work who has her own story of being just ridiculous, a liar, a grifter, so problematic. I think I did 3 videos on her. These two are the worst. And this man is a perfect example of a man who never suffers consequences and who women around him have to sweep up after him or go to prison because of him and men like him. God, please lock him up. Lock him up, he's a piece of crap who never takes accountability like most men. Fork off, you king baby.